said that reading makes you more, well, empathetic. It's a way to escape your own life or take it far away lands. How exciting. Or put you into other people's shoes. It's even said it can keep your brain healthy, reduces stress, and you can sleep better or inspires you. And today we are going to talk to the amazing Miranda Oh about her Chicklet series. Wait until you hear the names of these books. Very, very exciting. Don't go away. We'll be right back. If you are just joining us, then welcome to Books with Bridgetti. I'm your host, Bridgetti from Cape Town in South Africa, and our stream is brought to you by StreamYard and Be Live Media. A special warm welcome to you, our audience, because this is an audience-centric show. So I have got my phone here with me. I'm watching the comments, whether you are watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, or over on Amazon Live. Just know that I am monitoring comments. I will respond to them. If you've got a question for the author, if you just want to say hello, feel free to do that. Now, I've been interviewing authors for over roughly three and a half years, and met some amazing people along the way. So if you go to my Amazon Live storefront, you're going to find some of these amazing books in there. These are a lot of the authors that's already been on the show. And today we are going to be talking to the amazing, I'm always trying to get this right. It's a little bit difficult, but these are some of the most amazing books that you can choose from. And many of these authors have been on the show with me. So look out for the books of the series that we're talking about today. But before I introduce my amazing author for today, Miranda Oh, I'm all about helping people level up, right? And so who's not online these days? Everyone's online. If you've got a book, a product or a service, whatever it is, you've got to learn how to market stuff right online. And one of the things that you can do to level up is to use a camera that makes you look your best. So I use the Logitech Brio camera myself, and what's great about the Logitech Brio is that it's got its trademarked right light technology, which means it will adapt to your lighting conditions. Because sometimes you see people and they appear very, very dark. It's because they don't have the right kind of lighting. This camera will help you with that. And my microphone that I personally use is called the Samsung CO1U, which is a USB studio condenser microphone. Interesting fun fact is that Samsung was the very first company to release a USB condenser microphone, just for fun. But if you don't want to go all the way to the big microphone and you like something that's a little bit more mobile, that you can even put it on your phone, then I recommend going with a lavalier microphone, and this is the Rode lavalier microphone. Highly recommended. And it also comes with this little thingy for the windshield. So, if you're out and about and there's a bit of noise distraction that kind of muffle a little bit, and if you're out in the wind, perfect. Get a wind thingy. I don't know what the real name is, but it actually comes with it in the box. Promise. So, amazing guest for today is Miranda Oh, and she is the author of a chicklet series. Now, wait for this. Now, the titles sound a little risque, but it's not what you think it is. So, she's got 3 books. Part of her chicklet series is called Chin Up, Tits Out. That's the name of the series, and she's going to explain what that means. She's a fun-loving woman. She loves the sunset. She has long walks at the beach. She's a deep thinker, and she loves nice shoes. You can tell that from the covers of her book. And she lives out her fantasy dreams in her stories. But I'm not going to tell her story for you. She's much better than I am at that. So put your hands together and let's welcome her to the show, shall we? Miranda, welcome to the show. So glad to have you. I need to ask you, how did you get to have, is O your real surname?
No, it's not. It's a pen name, actually. So I work in corporate because that pays the bills, and it just keeping my real personal name and my pen name, and those two worlds very different, because Chin Up Tits Out is the title series of my books, and let's just say Chin Up Tits Out doesn't really jive in the corporate world, where you should be greeting your customers and your business partners in a much different way. So O is just OH are both 2 initials that are important or pertinent in my life. So that's where O came from.
So clever, so absolutely clever, And, I've got this long surname and it doesn't always fit in everywhere. And I thought, that's so nice to have something that's short and snappy and that people will not easily forget.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you look at me, the last name, you're like, girl, that doesn't really fit. But it sticks because it doesn't fit. And I'm like, you know what? It's perfect. And Miranda is my middle name, and it means Scottish princess, I believe. So my dad's side is Scottish, so I was just like, you know what? I can rock the royalty for a little bit, especially in my book world and in my author world. I feel a little princess like every now and then, so might as well rock it.
It works. It works. So tell me about how you came up with the titles of your book. If one just looks at the titles at a glance, you may think, like, what is up with this?
Well,
Where
you
did
know what?
you get the titles?
It's funny. It's funny because when somebody looks at the book, somebody that knows nothing about me, they'll walk into a bookstore and they see it, or stumble upon it online and they see it. 50% of them will be like, "Oh, that's provocative," and I'm not about that. And
It's not for
then,
my kids, yeah, and it's not. It
right.
doesn't, yeah.
No, it's not like it's not. There are provocative moments, but it's tailoring to an adult audience. But it's not vulgar. It's not repulsive. It's not. It's done tastefully and classy. Chin Up Tits Out is very much a physical gesture that we choose to do as individuals to stand up tall and proud and feel confident. So we've all heard of power poses. We've all heard we fake it till we make it. You know, all those little things that we've been told throughout our lives, like those little mantras or those, again, stand up tall and proud, be confident. That kind of stemmed from my parents. Actually, when we were growing up, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous to walk into my classroom, my kindergarten classroom, as a 5-year-old. Well, you know, stand up tall with your shoulders back and your head held high. And then, you know, we get older and we get a little sassy and we go through puberty, and, you know, we throw that sass to our parents more than anybody else. And I think one day I was bucking for a compliment. I knew that I looked good. I was excited for my outing, but I still needed that little bit of reassurance from my mom. And she kind of just brushed it off. It was just like, girl, like, chin up, tits out, just go there and conquer. And we both
Mm.
stopped and we're like, ooh, that's good. And then it stuck. And I really didn't even realize that the series title was going to be named that, because it was just so deeply ingrained in who I am that I would constantly coach myself internally to stand up tall, to chin up, to tits out, to be confident, to, you know, that little monkey brain inside of me was always going with those words. And it wasn't until I read my books back when I was editing them that I noticed it pop out everywhere. And I'm like, holy, this has got to be it. And then it turned into the series, and it turned into kind of this mantra that my presence on social media and part of who I am as an author is all about being chin up, tits out. And, you know, when remember, no matter what, chin up, tits out, which is the title of the first book. So no matter what, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how good it gets, remember to do it. When all else fails, remember to do it, which is the title of my second book. And then my third book, which is just breathe, chin up, tits out. That's a big one. It's just like, when things get overwhelming or you hit rock bottom, when everything goes wrong, just breathe, do that little transition physically, and it makes a big difference on the inside. So little changes on the outside, big changes on the inside. Oh, you're on mute, Bridgetti.
A lot of that resonates so much with me, you know, because I have sons, and you know, when they got overwhelmed when they were younger, I always used to simply say to them, just breathe, you know, because it allows you to just pull yourself towards yourself. And so I can very well imagine how that became a mantra
Yeah,
um, for you,
totally.
you
Yeah,
know, so
totally.
that you just kind of always, whenever you felt challenged. In fact, I live with chronic pain, and so I oftentimes say to people, because that's how it is for me, you know, when I really, really have incredibly bad pain where I even struggle to breathe, I just
Mhm.
say to people, sometimes you've just got to focus on breathing and be grateful that you're not connected to a ventilator. That's
Yes.
my mantra,
Yep.
because you know, I can still breathe on my own. I'm going to be okay. I can still breathe.
Yep, exactly. I'm with you in the chronic pain scenario. And like, just people are like, yo, are you okay? Like, do we need to go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I can breathe. I can stand up. I may not be able to stand up straight because the pain is so bad. I may not be able to breathe deeply because the pain is bad, but I am not going to the hospital. I am not dying. We're okay. Let's just, if you don't want to look at me in pain, look the other way. You got 357 other degrees to look at outside of little old me. So look the other way. So yeah, chin up, tits out. And hey, if chin up, tits out doesn't jive with you, chin up, chest out. Like, make it your own, right?
It's more about the actual mantra and the meaning behind it. Because, you know, the same thing would apply to a man. You know, you know, stand tall, hold your chest out, and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, go with the moment.
Yep, totally.
Um, and I think we've got a lot of, you know, I think I was thinking of your books and how appropriate they are for the challenging times in which we live. Life is challenging. It's very challenging, and a lot of people are tempted to give up. But I think the overall messaging of your books is there to say to people, just breathe, take a step, take a breath,
Yep.
hold your chest out. You've got this. Is kind
Mhm.
of to me what the series is about. You know, what made you want to write about this? Sometimes we have all these things in our head, but we don't all become an author, or we don't actually write it down. So what is it made you want to become an author and actually write all this stuff?
Oh, the most simplest answer that I have is healing for my own self. So, my story, Chin Up, Tits Out, is very intertwined with my reality, what had happened in my past. But I'm nobody. I'm not going to write a memoir and be like, hey, so some girls in the Canadian prairie wrote a memoir about herself. You should read it. I'm not that cool or interesting, but I did go through some really interesting things. And I desperately needed to go through them again to learn where my mistakes were, learn where the red flags were that I was either too naive to notice or chose on purpose to hide. Um, and writing was definitely an opportunity for me to go and do that, relive it, get neck deep in it, sit in it, figure out what my mistakes were. But then at the same time, I now then had this thought. I'm like, man, like if I went through this stuff in my 20s and there's 7 billion people on this planet, I am not the only person that went through all this stuff. I'm not the only person who had immigration troubles. I'm not the only person who faced racism. I'm not the only person who faced marital problems in their 20s. I'm not the first person who dealt with chronic illnesses, terminal illnesses. Like I was 20 and I had to deal with a lot of stuff. And throughout that whole time, people always commented on my, oh, you're so positive when you're going through so much stuff. And I'm like, what are my options? At that point, I didn't have any other option. I could have sank and be completely consumed in negative emotions because that's how I felt on the inside. But I always strive to have this chin up, tits out mental attitude to, and then always strive to find a silver lining, always strive to find something entertaining. Now, is that a coping mechanism for mental illness? 100% it is. But I knew when I started to write this that I realized that when I started to write this, I wasn't alone in how I felt in certain situations. But at those times, I felt terribly alone. I couldn't go to my partner who was sick. I couldn't go to my parents who were in a happy, successful marriage because I was not in a happy, successful marriage. And so they wouldn't understand. I didn't want to go to my family or friends because they put so much effort into loving my partner and accepting the relationship, but it was falling apart behind closed doors. So I was embarrassed to go to my family and friends. I felt guilty going to my parents. My partner was dying. I couldn't go to him. I was so alone in all those feelings, even though I was very well supported. I didn't feel comfortable going to anybody. So I figured, you know what, let's write something because you you can connect through words, and you can strip down the scenario to with words on how feelings feel. Fear manifests very similarly in everybody else. Happy manifests similarly in everybody, right? So when you strip down the situation and you use words to describe a feeling, you can connect to people. And using a book as a tool to connect to people worldwide was an option. So I didn't want people to feel alone. And I also wanted people to be like, oh, no matter what I'm going through, it's not as crazy as what Hadley in Chin Up, our main character, or Miranda, what I went through. And so it makes people feel a little bit more normal in their day-to-day life than I did at that point. So it was all about relatability for me and why I wanted to share the story.
Wow. I think, that is very relatable for a lot of people, and I dare say for a lot of women in particular, because it's a
Mhm.
very typical scenario where you come from a family where your parents are doing well, or even if they're not doing well, you know, you find yourself in a relationship with someone where things are not going well,
Mhm.
but outwardly it may look well. Your friends think everything's going well. And so you suffer in silence and you have absolutely no outlet because, do you trust anybody to share all this stuff with?
Mhm.
And that's why we eventually develop, mental illnesses or other stuff because we're bottling all of this information up in our heads. And, then we start to get sick because in turn, we've got no outlet to direct
Mhm.
all those feelings. So it's always interesting how many of the authors that I've interviewed have not all authors write because it's therapeutic, but some authors
Mhm.
do.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Some authors do. So I want to ask you, could you, do you have any of your books with you that you could read a passage? Because that would be super fantabulous if you could. That'll be great.
I got 2 out of 3, which I mean, like,
Yay!
ain't that bad?
Not
So I'll give you
bad at
a
all.
right. I'll give you a little context. So, I'm reading the beginning part of both books. Um, and the second book, which is When All Else Fails. So this is when Hadley, um, she's going into transitioning into a really big part of the story, and there's a lot of illness and a lot of crappy feelings when it comes to this book. Like book number 2, you need a box of Kleenex and a big bottle of wine, or like a jug made of your favorite beverage, and just like close your door and ignore everybody for a few hours, but then have the third book on hand so you can immediately jump to it. Because when I finish and I publish this book, I think I left everybody waiting for like 3 years. I had a lot of things that I needed to do, plus I needed to live my life in order to write the ending
Talk
of this
about
book.
a cliffhanger.
Right. And it's a cliffhanger. Like it's like a gut punch with a throat jab followed by a slap. Like it's a triple whammy with a cherry on top. And you're sitting there and like, it's a pink cover, Miranda. Why did you play me like that? Um, so we're gonna read a little bit of the prologue in this book, and Hadley is about to go on her first date, post a lot of traumatic stuff. And then the part in the third book that I'm reading, it kind of connects to the end of this book. So there's no it's not relatable, it's not related. There's a lot that happens in between these two parts of the stories, but these two passages actually give you something that's a little bit more funny and lighthearted, because a lot of the books are funny and lighthearted. And then but on the flip side, when I read you the passage of the third book, it's heavy and it's dark and it makes you think. So I wanted to give you two very different types of passages so you can kind of understand the two feels. There's a lot of light and funny and twisted, but then there's a lot of dark and twisted that hurts your soul, because you either know how it feels, or that little light bulb flips a switch and you're like, oh, that's how that person I care about felt in that situation. So again, very relatable on both sides. So anyways, I'm going to stop jib jabbering and we're ready to go. um, let's just, you can hear me all right. Testing, testing, 1, 2,
I
3.
can. Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, beautiful. As the car pulled up into my parents' driveway, a rush of excitement ran through my body. Everything from the tips of my toes to my cheeks lit up with butterflies. You can do this, Hadley. You have survived worse. As I walk towards his white Ford Escape, I can see his eyes widen as I approach. He hopped out of his SUV and ran around the vehicle, eyeing me up and down as he pulled the gentleman card and opened the door to assist me in. Oh, wow, Hadley, oof, you look amazing, he stammered out. Whoo, my confidence level just shot through the roof. He thinks I'm hot. Damn, girl, I am hot. I mean, I kept trying to convince myself of this. As I stepped into the truck, I can feel his eyes on my behind, and I knew this dress was a winner. Thank goodness I was finally starting to feel like one. Man, but my nerves, I have the worst dry mouth. My mouth feels like I'm chewing on this cotton ball. Man, I wish I should have brought gum. Does my breath smell okay? Oh my goodness gracious. As he gets into the truck, he checks me out again from top and bottom, admiringly while trying to process something intelligent to say. Do you think that happened? No, that's not going to happen. He sputtered out, so, are you ready to stuff your face? I beg your pardon? Did you just ask me if I wanted to stuff my face? Anyways, that's the first passage. So as you can see, you're right? So fun. You're right there with Hadley, but then you have her little monkey brain that's interjecting. So if you flip through the book and you're like, man, there's italicized writing in here, I don't know why. That's Hadley's little monkey brain going like, did you just really ask me if I was going to stuff my face on a first date with you after checking me out? And like, I'm nervous, he's nervous, everybody's nervous. And he asked me if I wanted to stuff my face. So that was fun.
Wow. Just wow.
Right. I like, there's a lot of fun stuff.
Fun deluxe. So now you're going to read from the third book.
Yes, I'm going to read from the third book, and it's really right at the beginning. And the section that I'm reading from is a wee bit of telling on myself. So this may be relatable if you've ever gone through something tough with a partner. So you know those moments when you tell yourself that you're totally right in your thinking and you attempt to convince yourself, but really, truly, you know you're in the wrong. So that first week after Ryan left, which was Hadley's ex-husband or husband at the time, no one could convince me that he wasn't coming back. And no one even dared to try to convince me. Honestly, after he left, no one around me could handle it either. Or at least that was the way that I perceived it. They took one look at me and started to cry, not believing the fact that Ryan literally walked out of everything, that after everything transpired, after everything for 5 years. I didn't believe that he was gone. I didn't want to. Therefore, in my mind, I was convinced our love would prevail and he would come back somehow, some way. I knew that I was wrong in believing this, though, but I couldn't accept it. Otherwise, that meant I failed. How do you take marriage vows until death do you part and fight so hard to be together and then watch the person walk out willingly? He was still alive. We kept him alive. And I was just supposed to accept the circumstances of stop loving him. I was supposed to stop believing in a future with him. How was I supposed to just give up? My family remained silently supportive, but despite how mad and how hurt I knew everyone else was, no one could understand the inner battle of love and hate in that moment more than I did. It was like a kick to the teeth, realizing that love isn't easy and that you can't love somebody enough to make them happy. Obviously, love wasn't enough. Stupid Disney. I used to believe in fairy tales. Let me tell you, realizing all of this sucked big, hairy, sweaty toes. And at any cost, you need to avoid those. There you go.
Oh, my word. Miranda, I have to ask you, have you narrated your own audiobooks yet? Because if you haven't, you got to put that on your bucket list. You got to put that onto your to-do list. You cannot hire.
I think so too.
I'm just saying this for the record. You cannot go and pay someone else to narrate your books. You got to do this yourself because, girl, you put some soul into your voice there.
Oh, but reading my books is probably my favorite thing to do, like reading them in public. I like COVID aside, because it's ruined that for me being in bookstores and doing this, but did I ever have fun? Like the only downfall was that I couldn't ask people to bring their glasses of wine or their beers into my book launches in the bookstores because it wasn't allowed. But I'm like, just put it in your thermos. Nobody is gonna ask. Like, you need it to enjoy this. Yeah, I absolutely love reading my books. I have so much fun doing it.
Oh my word. Well, I feel like, you should be having your own show, just reading your book every day. Like, just a couple of paragraphs every day. Um, and do that, because I think you are just so brilliant. Fit it into your marketing plan.
Right,
I
right.
It's just amazing. Amazing. The way you breathe life into the story is so compelling.
Good, I'm
Um,
glad.
you know, and just wow, you are just amazing. Like
Thank you. I left you speechless. That's pretty good. I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one.
absolutely. Okay, so I want to know, how did you learn the technique of compelling story writing? Because not everybody has got that technique right. So you can be an author and you can be an author. You can be a average author, a mediocre author. You can be a page turning author. So you seem to have mastered that art of compelling story writing. What's your advice for somebody that wants to become an author? How do you get to that point where you just want, people just want to turn the page and they're not going to put that book down all night. They have to finish the book.
Oh, I would love to tell you that I was born with it, like the Maybelline commercial. Maybe she was born with it. But honestly, I think the advice that I would give is to leave golden nuggets along the way. And I call them golden nuggets. It could be breadcrumbs. Like I don't know what you want to call them. To me, I call them golden nuggets. And so when I'm writing and something's getting super juicy and I have an opportunity to kind of put that inner voice in, that always has a purpose in it. It always has a purpose of either bringing somebody really present to the moment, or it's like a little bit of foreshadowing. And it's funny because whenever I watch a movie now, the slightest thing, like a song playing in the background or somebody's action, I'm like, that's foreshadowing. And my partner's like, stop it. You're the worst person to watch a movie with, because like you pick it out before it even finishes happening. But I love writing about that in my book, because that's what, to me, when you anticipate something, when you see something unfold and you're like, man, like I know that's not going to finish right here, right now. So there has to be a purpose farther down for this to come back or circle back to. And so that's definitely something that I always try to do, is when I'm writing and it's getting a little heated, in any way, good, bad, ugly, to always kind of drop a golden nugget that brings people to wanting to turn the page a little bit more. So either, restricting yourself a little bit on that scene or that action so you can plunk it into a few pages later or a few chapters later, and people will pick up on that and anticipate that something to happen. And then the funnest thing is you're anticipating something to happen, but then you twist it again as an author. My life was just filled with twists. So I kept putting anticipations, but then like a twist would happen in reality. I'm like, oh man, this would be a good book. So realistically, reality gave me a good page turner. I just drank some wine, wrote some books, left some breadcrumbs for you, and hoped everybody either related to it or enjoyed it.
That is amazing. So now you've written your book. It doesn't fly, I think every author who writes a book hopes that when it hits the bookshelves, it's just going to fly off the shelf by itself. But in reality, it doesn't quite work that way. So how did you um how did you work out your marketing plan? And I also want to know, did you indie publish or did you go the traditional route, and why did you make that choice?
Well, I went indie published a little partially, and I self-published partially. Mostly I went that route because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Like I had a story, um, and I knew I wanted to write it, and I knew I wanted to make money off of it. It wasn't just something I wanted to keep in a file on my hard drive and have it stored in my basement for 20 years. It was something that I really wanted to share and monetize, because I'm like, man, like I went through enough, and that cost me a lot of money to go through that stuff in life. So if I could find some sort of way to monetize my trauma, like why the heck not? So heal and make a little bit of money back for it. So that was basically my approach to marketing, was just like, I don't care if I make 5 cents, $5 or $5 million. I mean, obviously $5 million or above
Would be
or
nice.
anything big would be amazing. So my marketing plan was just to get it out at first. And so I found a local publisher from where I am. I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and the publisher is actually a good friend of mine, and was writing nonfiction books at the time. And he's just like, you know what, I have all the contacts, so you just pay one price. We basically take your Word document that is your book and turn it into a book, create a launch, do it all for you. And I said, that's awesome. I don't know what else to do, so let's just do that. So we did that for my first 2 books, and we got them both out in 11 months. So that was like a super awesome hammer at it. And then the third book, I was like, I got a really great traction for the first 2, but I don't know how to now continue to make money and to keep my relevance for my first 2 books, because the publishing company just kind of helped it get out there, and then the rest of it was on me. So I had a website, I had an Amazon profile. I didn't know how to work it. So my third book, I'm like, I want to figure out how to do this. So then I went and I found an indie publisher in the States, I want to say California, and they published my third book for me. And it was like, okay, all of it is on you. So there's no website, there's no launch, you do it. I'm like, well, perfect. I like booking parties. Who doesn't like a good party? So I did that. And then the pandemic hit. And so everything kind of shut down, and my ways to make money, which for me was face to face. I'm much better face to face than I am on paper, always have been, probably always will be. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what to do with that now, because how do I continue to make money? So I'm now working on my next series, and my next series is all me. I'm doing everything. I'm taking the Word document and using software to turn it into a book, then hiring a specific book cover designer, doing that myself, updating my website, and then working with platforms like Amazon to kind of figure out how to keep my book relevant, to, where do I do promotions? How do I do promotions? What links and what platforms are available to me, how much money is this going to cost me? So my next series, I'm way more hands-on. I'm doing it all on my own, where the first series, again, I think I was learning a lot as an author. So the challenge for me was to write a book and to make it good. Everything else, I had no interest and no idea how to do. So I've been picking little things up along the way. And I think that's, if you're wanting to start writing, or you're wanting to become an author and you don't know where to start from the bottom and work your way up. I don't have patience or the guts to send it in to big publishers. Maybe I will one day, but I didn't want to get rejected over and over again. Maybe I have a fear of rejection. Maybe I've been rejected too much in my life. So I was just like, you know what? If I do this, I have control. So if I'm having success, it's on me. If I'm not having success, it's on me. It's not on anybody else. And that is where I am as an author. Now, after some time and I learn how to make money off of this from the business aspects, I know how to tell stories now, then maybe one day I'll go the traditional route and just send my books in and see what happens. If nothing happens, oh well, I've learned everything and I can manage on my own. If something does happen, then cool, it's a new door, new opportunity, and a whole bunch of new lessons to be learned. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. I was thinking as I'm, listening more and more about your story and so on, and I thought, you know what, this needs to be a movie, like Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah, totally. I would love it
Because
to be a series or a film of some sort. I would die. That would be a dream come true because it would be good.
because as you sort of talking about, and I was listening to you read, and I'm thinking, this is a movie in here. This is like another Pretty Woman kind of story.
Yep.
Where you have an amazing actress that's going to portray the part of Hadley. I mean, there's just so much in this. You should totally try and get this turned into a movie. I think you've got enough you've got enough stuff packed into the series to turn this into a movie. You should totally look into that. You should totally look into that.
Yeah. Mickey, my publicist from Creative Edge, him and I have talked about this since day one. And I'm like,
oh, wow. So I'm not off the mark.
No, you're not off the mark. It's just, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, again, like I work in corporate. I just had a baby this year, bought a house, finishing my basement by myself because, I'm a handyman too. I'm not a handyman, but I like to pretend I am because I'm too cheap to pay somebody to do it. So there's so much going on. And isn't that the truth? Like there's always 1.5 million excuses that are between you and a passion project that could turn into something big. And so my partner and I always talk about it where it is something that I am going to pursue. The best thing about books is that they're timeless, really. Like, nonfiction books may not be timeless depending on what they're about, but fiction is always timeless. You can pick it up at any time and it will be relevant or relatable if you're attracted to the title or if you're attracted to the plot of the story. So we're like, okay, let's get our family expansion, let's get our home life settled. And then my partner is a doctor, so he needs to kind of get some things in his practice settled because his income can support our whole family when I choose to make that move to just solid business owner, writer, creator. And you best know it that audiobooks and movies are going to be on my priority list, like top priority list at that point, because I'm going to have the time. Hopefully my kids are going to be in school. All of them will be in school. I only have one. I'm projecting positive things, but all the kids will be in school. My partner will be a good, successful doctor and loving his life. Then it will be my turn to shine. And so we have big plans. And the cool thing about me and my partner is we talk about our plans probably every other day in a very like nonchalant, but it is part of our daily conversation. So it's not something that's going to fall suit just because life is happening. It is in the works. It's just not at the top of my priority list right now. I gotta get these kids out so I can move on from this part of life.
Absolutely. One thing at a time. Now, I've got to ask you, you did mention Mickey Mickelson being your publicist, right?
Yep.
Do you recommend that an author gets a publicist, and why would you, either way, do you recommend it?
Hands down, I recommend it. So I need you to picture me in a suit with my book, and I was 25 at the time. So I pretty much kind of looked a little bit the same, except I was skinnier because, no baby. But anyways, no. So I walk into a bookstore and I'm like, hi, sorry, is your manager here? And they're like, yeah. And then I go and I stick my hand out. I'm like, hi, manager. My name is so-and-so, and I wrote this book and blah, 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 blah. And I would love for you to have it in my store. And she's like, good. So let me take the book. Yeah. So she takes the book. I'm like, no, that's my coffee. Like, you can't take that. And she's like, but how do you want me to put it on my shelves if I've never read it? I don't know who you are. And I was like, but can I have it back? Like, that's like the first book. It was the only book that I had at that point. And she was just like, oh yeah. And she was super hesitant about it. And I didn't understand why. And so Mickey and I actually knew each other prior to me being an author and him being a publicist. And we actually worked together. And so when I told him this happened, he was just like, okay, I need you to think about this for a second. And I was like, okay. He's just like, do you think artists book their own shows? And I said, well, no, they're probably like, well, I want this and I want that and like this and this. And like the person who books it is like, I don't need to be dealing with somebody who's very eclectic and particular. I want to deal with it from a business aspect. And I said, I understand. I've owned businesses in my past as well. I said, I understand that artistry is very different than business. There's two sides to it. And when you're booking shows or you're booking connections, a blog, an interview, whatever it is, there's a business aspect. There's business code to stand for. And of course, I can turn that dialect on compared to what my writing is like. And I can put the suit on and I can shake the hands and kiss the babies and be professional. But when they find out you're the author, they're like, nah. So when somebody comes at them that has a publicist name that's recommended in the industry, you are already a step ahead of that random author walking into a bookstore or walking into a TV station, whatever you are gung-ho to do. Having that business face support you is the biggest step forward for you. You can write books, you can keep writing books, but people aren't going to know about them until you're on media. And to get on the media is all business. It's all connections. It's all about how you are portrayed as an author. And when you're portrayed from a third party that has a publicist attached to that, then you're elevated from the rest of the group already. And I honestly didn't think that it was going to be that much of, or it would hold that much of an impact, but it does. Again, I told you I can put the dialect on, I can put the suit on, but it doesn't. As soon as Mickey's no better, no worse than I am when it comes to being business, but he has that publicist name. He has that process that he's just like, girl, you write books, you talk to the crowds, let me book your shows. You do you, I'm going to do what I do. And just having that support is absolutely huge. And then also on top of that, the publicist and every author that he represents is now attached to you. So I'm no USA bestseller, international bestseller. I was a bestseller on my first book the week it opened. Hurrah. Like, okay, cool. I know I have good stories, but I'm no Robert J. Sawyer or J.K. Rowling yet. But having those authors that Mickey and Creative Edge represents, and they are people that have written one book to people that have written hundreds of books and won hundreds of awards and make a really good living off of. All those people are now in the same boat as you because you have that publicist behind you. So they're like, oh, if this person is represented by this company and this company also represents XYZ author and they're very successful, they must be good in some way, shape, or form. So the community also helps you. I would hands down, like if you can't afford any other marketing or promotion, which I am in, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that, having a publicist is the one piece of financial responsibility that you should put on yourself, because being face to face, like in interviews like this, is getting your name out there. It may not translate into selling hundreds of books, but it does get your name out there. And it's like building blocks. One interview can lead into 2 or 3 other interviews. And then another platform that's bigger or better or XYZ, whatever, will be able to see you and go, oh, hey, she's not bad. We like her. Okay, she fits within our show. And then now you have more opportunities with a bigger reach, with new audience that might just hear Chin Up Tits Out and go, oh, I'm going to go look at that, and just curious about it, right? without shows, without media opportunities, you're selling to your friends, your family, and everybody in your local city because you're at bookstores. So I think it's definitely a must, personally.
That is amazing. While you were giving reasons why one should absolutely invest in a publicist, because it's investing in yourself, in your future, in the future of your books,
Yep.
your career. I was kind of thinking it's similar to somebody wanting to walk into a courtroom without a lawyer.
Yes, yes,
If
exactly.
somebody says, well, I'm lawyered up, you kind of have a new respect for that person and you kind of step back because, whoa, these are
Totally,
serious
totally.
people, you know.
Exactly, and they hold merit, right? Of like, I would never walk into a courtroom and know that I could end up in jail or charged with something and not have the proper support. And that's exactly the same way. I don't want to step out into public with my books and not have the proper support. And having a publicist is that proper support. Like, that's a perfect analogy, Bridgetti. Like, I had never thought about that, but yes, I second that thought.
I literally got that thought as you were talking, and I realized that is what it is. That's why
Mhm.
you need a publicist. You need somebody that's going to be advocating for you,
Yes,
is what it is. And that's what your
for sure.
publicist does, right? You know.
And you grow, and they help you grow. I mean, especially if this is your first book or first time in the industry, you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I can't tell you the countless times Mickey and I have had phone call conversations to review interviews or to review opportunities. And he goes, okay, you did really great here, here, and here, but these two sections, these two questions or whatever, this needs to be refined a little bit. So over the years that we've worked together, he has helped me refine my interview skills, which has opened up opportunities. He's linked me up with authors that he also represents that are experts in other areas. And he goes, you know what, set a meeting with this person and talk to them about this, because I think it will be really helpful for you. So they're advocating you, they're coaching you to all be better in the public eye. But at the end of the day, you're still the creator of your books. You're just getting helped and supported in the media eye. And media is how you're going to sell your books, unless you know personally millions and millions of people and you've done that legwork already yourself. But if you don't know all those people and you haven't done that groundwork, then hook yourself up with a publicist, because they're the bee's knees. They're the ones that are going to get you the media, and the media is where you in turn gain popularity. And when you gain popularity, you sell books. It's building blocks.
Absolutely. And I really like what you said. You also want to choose your publicist carefully.
Yep.
Now, I mean, if you look at somebody like Mickey of Creative Edge, he's got a huge array of authors, and some of them are just amazing. And so that
Yes.
association is something
Mhm.
that's going to sort of just up level your status as an author.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
for sure, for sure. Miranda, this was fun. This
It
was
was so
so
much
much
fun.
fun. Really enjoyed having you on the show. And what's next for you? Now, I did notice that the last book is not on Amazon at the moment. Do you have a plan with that?
Yeah, so I'm doing a cover redesign on my third book, and then relaunching the whole series as a box set on Amazon and all other platforms. Now you can buy the first edition of these guys through my website, and I'm blowing them out at less than what they are market value, and the reason why is because I want to get that box set out quickly. So I got a whole storage box of these in my basement right now that I'm
Are
ready
we
to
looking
go.
forward to having the whole
Yeah.
box set going to be Amazon?
Yes.
Do you have a kind of date when they will be released as a
I'm
box set?
hoping in early in the new year. Within the first 6 weeks or so in the new year, I should have everything accomplished. I'm meeting with a cover designer tomorrow. Actually, I'm very excited about that. So we're working towards that, and then I'm hoping to get my next series. I have another series that I'm starting. I'm hoping to get that out within the first quarter-ish, first 3 to 4 months of the new year. My goal was March, but darn it, having a kid kind of threw my scheduling off a little bit. So the next
Life
series will
happens,
be.
right?
I know, and I'm like, you know what? I
Life
could feel really
happens.
stressed out about it, but I don't. So I've finished this series, and it'll be done properly when I get the box set out. And that was very important to me, to finish that off and to wrap it with a pretty bow, and then get my next series out. And my next series is gonna, in hopes, it's going to move mountains. So I can't wait for that either.
Well, congratulations and thank you so much for sharing about your series and a little bit more about the backstory of your Chicklet series. So thank you very much. I want to say a huge big thank you to our audience, those of you who have joined us over on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on Amazon Live. And just a shout out to Nicholas. Thank you for the follow, Nicholas. Much appreciated. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you back on the next episode of Books with Bridgetti. Take care and goodbye from Cape Town for now.